The first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
Crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
Everybody, you've seen Eric on numerous recaps with me, pre-competition shows. I think even like some different panels and stuff. Eric's been on the show a lot, but we haven't actually sat down and done kind of an overview of your grip career or your involvement in the sport in detail with you one-on-one. So Eric Roussin is here once again, and we're going to kind of get into, I guess, really how you sort of started whatever athletics was it arm wrestling first or however it worked, but just kind of get into maybe what things you were finding out early on, like competing. Like, what sports did you play? Any sports? Was it arm wrestling first? Just, I guess, what's the background before we even get to the other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the first sport I would say, I mean, growing up in Canada, I played the only sport I did organized was I did some like house league hockey, which is not the competitive stream, but just um, playing maybe one or two practices a week and one game a week type thing. I did that from the age of like 10 to 13. I was a hockey goalie, so that was the only organized sport I did growing up. I mean, I took swimming lessons or skating lessons or regular stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But arm wrestling is something I did. I guess I remember doing it with my dad when I was really young, and he showed me just a couple of really basic techniques. Not that he knew technique, but he knew he was a good arm wrestler, and he sort of just showed me how he pulled. And I did it in grade school. I remember like grades five and up, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I was always really, really good. So I knew I had sort of a knack for it. And I knew from over the top and from seeing arm wrestling on TV, I knew that it existed as a sport. So I figured, eventually one day I want to try to maybe seek this out. And yeah, towards the end of high school, I found out that there was a local tournament, and it was actually a pretty big one called the Gloucester Fair International Arm Wrestling Tournament. And I went there. I was 17. I was a little too shy to enter at that point, but I did watch the tournament. And I spoke to the organizer, and he invited me out to a practice. And that's where I learned how to pull. And I got into competing shortly after that. So that was definitely once I discovered competitive arm wrestling, I'm like, this is the sport for me. Like, I knew that I really, really liked it, and I wanted to get good at it. So I did that. That was really my first serious sport, and I've arm wrestled. I've arm wrestled many, many tournaments over many, many years. And then for grip stuff, I eventually started seeking out equipment to train for arm wrestling. And I remember coming across, so when I first got online in 96. So I was in university. It was the first time I discovered what the internet was. And I discovered armwrestling.com. That was a website all about the sport. And that's when I first saw Captains of Crush Grippers advertised. And I'm like, I don't know anything about grippers, but I figure it can't hurt. So I ordered a number 1 and a number 2. So this would have been 96, I think. And I could close the number 1 out of right away and do several reps, but I couldn't do the 2. So I figured this was something. It was interesting. It was something to work on. And then I gradually started buying other Ironman equipment. I bought some of the early purchases. I remember I bought the old style Rolling Thunder. I bought a hub, the Titan's telegraph key. So I bought all these different pieces, thinking that they would be helpful for arm wrestling. And some of them probably were. It's hard to tell, some more than others. But I enjoyed training grip. But that's my early exposure to at least the grip implements, was through training, trying to get stronger for arm wrestling. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So if you have any specific questions,
you're good. Yeah, I was gonna ask just a couple things. So
yeah,
with arm wrestling, kind of there like late teens, and you're kind of seeking ways to train and improve. Was that really the first time? I mean, outside of maybe some sports that you kind of mentioned or doing different activities, was that the first time that you got into like strength training, or did you have like a strength base
Yeah, so no,
beforehand a little
I,
bit?
I was
Or
always, Arnold Schwarzenegger was an idol. I
okay,
like the big '80s action movie stars, and I knew I liked the bodybuilding sort of the look of being strong. So I got
hmm,
into weight training, more I would say more bodybuilding at the age of about 16. So
okay,
from 16 is when I started actually training with weights, and I've trained with weights ever since. So yeah. So yeah, that was not to compete in bodybuilding, but it was, to
yeah,
look to be strong and to look strong. So
yeah. And then I guess from that, just so I don't want to skip over too much, but
yeah.
with the arm wrestling side of things, do you? I know this is probably impossible to say. Do you have an idea of like how many tournaments you've competed in over the years? Like even if it's like a rough estimate or anything?
Yeah, yeah, I would say I've competed maybe 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 200 tournaments and 200 tournaments. And if you want to make that in terms of matches, because I would do right and left,
Yeah.
so that's probably it would have to be over 1,000 matches. And I've organized also probably 50 tournaments. So yeah, that's over from 96 to I stopped competing in 2022, but I keep hosting tournaments.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's funny though. My first 10 years, I remembered everything, every single tournament, every single match, every single opponent. But as the time goes
Yeah, it can be
by,
tough.
I forget. I've forgotten a lot of my personal history, especially in the early days of arm wrestling. But it's definitely arm wrestling. They say it's sort of like a strength martial art, right? But I do see that as a combat sport, and I do winning an arm wrestling match, especially in a tournament. It's a good feeling, right? It's
Yeah.
different from lifting weight, right? It's you're fighting back, or you know how it feels. I'm sure fighting is a lot more, but to be able to
Yeah.
pin an arm, force somebody's arm down, it is a good feeling. So I understand why it is. Well, I've always loved it, but now that more people are discovering it, I'm not surprised to see its growing popularity.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get into you hosting some stuff as well on grip and probably the arm wrestling side. But start getting into competitions. At what point do you feel like I don't know if this is where like maybe you got with a team, a crew of people, you're training, you're doing the arm wrestling. At what point do you feel like it started to become more serious and you were actually at a level where you're like kind of competing with maybe some household names or people at the time that were kind
Yeah,
of noteworthy, you know?
yeah. So I mean, so I joined a club and I practiced for about 4 months before actually competing. And then I realized, okay, even early on, I was far from being the best, but I was at least doing okay. And I would say my first 5 years in the sport, uh, I went to practice every week. I weight trained, but I don't think I was taking it super seriously. I was enjoying the newbie gains and I was doing okay. But I remember it's around 2002, 2003, where I decided, okay, at that point I'm already in my mid 20s. I'm like, oh, if I really want to see how far I can get, I have to decide if I want to take this seriously. So that I started training harder, gaining some weight because I started off in the 200-pound class or 198, and then for a while I gained weight. I was in the 220 class, and that's sort of when I got stronger. And the World Arm Wrestling Championships were coming to Ottawa, where I live, in 2003. So in 2002, I'm like, okay, I would like as a goal, I'd like to try to qualify for the World Championships. And to qualify for the World Championships at that time, you had to finish top two in the country in your weight class. And I knew that wasn't going to be easy because at the national level, it is strong. But that's sort of around that time is when I started training a little more seriously. It's also around that time that I hooked up with Devin. So Devin Larratt moved to Ottawa for work around, I think, 2001, late 2001. And at that time, the club I had joined originally was sort of not as active. So it was sort of a down period in the area. But he moved to town and he wanted to train and he wanted to start arm wrestling and gain the club. So I started training with him every week, and gradually over the next several years, the team would grow and grow and grow. Um, and I traveled with him to a few big events, but I've had success. I'd say after 5 years is when I started having, being competitive at the national level.
Okay.
Um, um, I can give you a whole bunch of names of people that I've beaten at one time or another, and they probably have beaten me as well. But yeah, I'd say my peak years was probably around 2010. When I was in my early 30s, I think that's probably when I was at my strongest. Um, Probably 230 pounds and getting wins over a number of guys. Yeah, I don't really even want to get into names, but I
Yeah,
was
because
I was never the
I get what you
best.
mean.
I was never the best, but I have won 14 provincial titles, which in Canada, provincial titles are a pretty big deal because there are a lot of pullers. So 14 times provincial champion, and I've won 3 national titles. So those were
Yeah.
sort of my bigger accomplishments in arm wrestling.
Yeah, and that kind of covers the accomplishments without kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's factual information if you beat somebody, but yeah, I get what you mean because you might say, "Oh, well, I have a win over this guy and that guy," and then they might have beat you 2 or 3 times too that we're not mentioning. I don't know. It would probably be cool to name some of the people just so people know, like, oh, like the type of people you've arm wrestled with. But at the same time, you also don't want to make it seem like, oh yeah, I beat this person or that person because timelines and there's a lot of context there
Yeah,
that maybe we don't want to dive into. Um,
yeah,
but one question I will ask: had Devin already been arm wrestling ahead of that and he was wanting to continue, or was he kind of newer? Who
yeah.
started
I know.
first?
So he started a couple years before me. So he started in
Okay.
'94. I started in '96. I first met him at a tournament. Actually, that tournament that I told you about, the Gloucester Fair, this was the same tournament a few years later. In '97, that's when I first saw him for the first time. And he was in my weight class.
Okay.
And believe it or not, he was 200 pounds that day at 6'5". And just looking at him before the tournament, I'm like, who's this tall, lanky dude, right? Because 6'5", 200, he's not a very intimidating guy. And I was looking at him and I'm like, I don't know this guy, but I'm curious. And I was pulling in the amateur. They have an amateur division and they have a pro division. I was doing the amateur. He pulled the amateur and he pulled the pro, and it was ridiculous. I made it to the final against him, and he beat me like I wasn't even there. Like he was
Okay.
way, way beyond me. And then I understood why he was also doing the pro, and he did well in the pro as well. He didn't win that day, but he did okay against some very established pullers. Um, so yeah, no, he had been pulling um, for 5 or 6, 7 years, I guess, by the time he moved to Ottawa.
Okay.
And then we kept going, kept going.
And how long did you guys train together? Or, I mean, I don't know if you still do any training, but about how long was like the team or whatever kind of,
Yeah,
or
so the team is
your
still
involvement?
the Ottawa High Hookers. Like we actually named that team, I think, around 2004, maybe. And at that time, we were maybe 6 or 7 regular guys, maybe not even. I trained, with Devin in the club consistently till maybe 2013. That's consistently. And then throughout the 2010s, I was going once in a while. The host the practices were at his place. But I was getting into grip, and then I was starting to have, and my kids were young, and I was having more elbow issues. So I wasn't arm getting table time as much. I was still doing the weight training at home, but I wasn't doing actual arm wrestling. And at that point, I mean, arm wrestling is great. I mean, it's good to do actual arm wrestling, but I felt it was almost hurting more than it was helping at this point. I mean, I know how to arm wrestle. I didn't really need to learn technique. So, um, but yeah, I would say I was a main club member until about 2013, 2014. And now the club is huge. They have practices with 30, 50, 60, 70 guys sometimes. It's a
Okay.
lot of new young pullers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever pop in at all and like check it out, or is it kind of just
I,
like,
I
or you see
haven't.
them at
I'm almost
competitions?
staying away because there's a couple reasons. B, I'm gonna want to pull.
Yeah.
And the last few years, especially when I pull, I sort of regret it because it hurts my elbow and it sets it can set my grip training back a bit.
Mhm.
So I see them all when they all come to my big annual tournament. So I see them there, and I go to other tournaments to watch as well. Um, but I haven't practiced in a few years. Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just double checking. And then, yeah, I think that pretty much probably covered it for most of that. I just wanted to dive in on a couple things there and just kind of get some
One
thoughts.
example for one tournament I'll tell you. So I made it to the World Arm Wrestling League. Was a really the biggest arm wrestling organization going, pro organization going in the mid 2010s. So
Mhm.
2014 to 2019, they were the big deal, the biggest money tournaments, the biggest TV coverage and everything. And that first year in 2014, there was four big qualifying tournaments. The last one was in Atlantic City, and I went to that one, and I did well. Like there were 38 guys in the right hand 195. I made it all the way to the final against Todd Hutchings,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
the Todd Hutchings match is the match that made it onto YouTube. And like I'm nowhere close to Todd, so he's completely playing me. But I wish they would have shown some of the many other matches that I had that day, because I did
Yeah.
get
Right.
some pretty good wins or had some really good matches. But that's the way it is. So online, I don't look impressive by my YouTube clips, but I'm pretty satisfied with what I accomplished in that sport.
Well, yeah. And something else I would add is, especially during that time, not everything was as like social media based, or people just weren't. And I know with grip you do it a lot too, where you don't film a lot of your lifts, whereas
Right,
other people are really like filming their stuff. You usually
right,
have your stuff captured by other people. So
right.
especially in a time when social media is not the priority for everybody walking around with a phone, you arm wrestle, you might have 6 or 7 killer matches and you're like destroying people. You make it to the finals, and then the video where Todd
Yeah,
Hutchings pins you is what gets put up. It's like,
yeah.
so I get it. And I think, I mean, now maybe he wasn't in the form he's in right now, but I mean, I just watched a video not too long ago with him just completely stop. I mean, and
The guy's a freak. The guy is.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying to say that, like, by any means that, like, Brian Shaw's a high level arm wrestler, but he's a giant, big dude. And for someone Todd's size to just basically toy with Brian and hold him wherever is, it should at least be an indicator of, like, how
Yeah,
strong the guy is, at
yeah.
least in, certain positions. Because, I mean, if you were to look at them, you'd never think that he would just toy with someone that, I mean, granted, like I said, it's kind of a skill sport as well, but
Yeah.
you still have to be strong if you're dealing with like a
Oh yeah.
440 pound just monster or something. So, um,
And I've had the chance to, like, in tournaments. I've had matches with a lot of my idols, right? Not that I beat any of them, but I've pulled Ron Bath, I've pulled John Brusink, I've pulled Travis Bajan, I've pulled Todd Hutchings many times, I've pulled Devin, I've pulled a lot of people.
yeah,
Most of those bigger names I never even came close to slowing down, but it's still cool because I know a lot of fans would say, "Oh, I'd love to just see how it feels." Um, and I've had actually training sessions as well with people like John Brusing. So it's a lot of fun to have had a chance to pull these guys in and out of competition just to see,
okay.
how they are. So
Is there now? I know it's tough because we could dive down a bunch of rabbit holes with this, but
right,
um, is there like one moment, whether it be competition or even like non-competition? You're talking about just practicing. You're just
yeah,
you're just pulling in practice. Was there any like biggest shocking moment where someone just like absolutely surprised you? Where like, okay, I thought it was going to be like tough to pull this person, but then it was like a different level. Was there anything that was just like stood out like above the others? Or I don't know, maybe if you're just training that much with that many people, you're already kind of accustomed to it, and you're also at a very good level yourself. But I didn't know if there was anything where you just were like a certain day, certain time when you're like, okay, like that person's like the strongest I've ever felt on the table, or
yeah.
anything.
No, I've been impressed with many guys, but what is impressive to me the most, I think, is when, like, some of these guys are just super explosive. Like they beat you in a tournament before you even have a chance to react. But when you get a
Mhm.
chance to actually ease into it, you realize that your strength levels might be closer than you thought.
Mhm.
But when you're sort of pulling slowly, and somebody's just sort of stonewalling you, and then all of a sudden they just start bringing your arm down. That's impressive because that's when you really see the gap in strength. And I trained a lot. Like I said, I was never the best, but I got to a point where I was pretty strong. And when I can arm wrestle people who they're basically toying with me slowly, like I'm not even there, that's always super impressive. So I felt a few guys like that before. I remember pulling with John Brzezinski for a while, for a few, for a session, and basically for fun, I told them, because this was at a time, this I think 2008, 2007. 2007, yeah. So it was before Devin pulled him, before Devin beat him in a super match, maybe a year before that. And I remember pulling him with John saying, you know what, jokingly saying, yeah, Devin's better than you.
Yeah.
and then he did. Then he's like, then he just crunched my arm. He didn't like that. So when he really turned on the heat right there, like, okay.
Yeah.
But
Had he just been kind of like, I don't want to say toying, but was he kind of just like playing around before that?
yeah, we were just feeling each other out. And then when I
Yeah.
made that joke, I was just saying it to be funny. Then he
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
Yeah. It's always funny to like, I don't know, to me it's cool to hear those like background stories, especially from people that have kind of made it to the highest level
Mm,
at any sport. But especially something like that. I mean, you think about how many people have arm wrestled or got the idea to do it, and then you think about like the top of the mountain where the best people are, and to be able to
yeah,
pull some of those names and
yeah,
train or have that experience. I mean, you can't be a slouch, like you said. I mean, would you say three national titles
yeah. Three national, yeah,
in like the 14
yeah.
for like I guess the was it provincial? Is that how you say it?
Provincial, yeah.
Yeah,
The equivalent of a state title, but
yeah,
Ontario's a big
big.
province, so there's a lot of pullers, so
Yeah,
it's good.
gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so that's definitely cool. And then at what point? I know you kind of said it. You know, you started realizing that maybe it's taking its toll, recovery wise, injury wise, or just you're leaning towards some of the lifting stuff. Is that when you kind of shifted to grip? And what was kind of your like first real intro to that as
Yeah,
far as
so
yeah.
I learned I discovered that grip contests were a thing in the early days. Like I discovered the grip board, I think in 2001 or whatever iteration of the grip board it was. And I eventually realized, okay, there's actually starting to be somewhat of a sport going on here. And I had pieces of equipment, mostly Iron Mine at that time. And then I decided to host a grip challenge after I organized an arm wrestling tournament. And I said, afterwards, anyone who wants to stick around, we'll do a grip contest. So that's my first few contests that I organized were in conjunction with arm wrestling tournaments. And I remember those, so this would have been 2007. And those ones, I didn't compete because I felt like it was a bad look. Like it's all my equipment. I'm the one. So I felt like I had an unfair
Yeah.
advantage. So those first few contests, 2007, 2008, I didn't compete. But then eventually I'm like, if I wait for someone else to organize a contest, I'll never get a chance to compete. So in 2010, I think is when I started competing in some of my own contests and enjoying it. And then looking beyond to start traveling, to the US to go some contests. But basically, yeah, I would say I had been training on those tools for many years, started hosting contests around 2007, and getting into it for me as a competitor, I'd say 2010. I don't remember why, but in 2010, I remember thinking I want to buy a Thomas Inch dumbbell. A, because I was pretty sure I'd be able to lift it. And B, I wanted to start bringing it to arm wrestling tournaments just as a challenge.
Yeah.
So I bought one that was directly from Jason Adamski in Minnesota.
Mhm.
He sold me an inch, and sure enough, I was able to get it first time. Right hand, left hand. It took me a little while, but and then I started bringing that to class. I remember I brought that to an arm wrestling tournament in 2010 or 2011, and three other guys, three arm wrestlers aside from me could lift it. So Devin, I wasn't too surprised he could lift it. And then there was a puller in my weight class called named Brian Tamlin. He lifted it easy. And like a 180-pound puller, Shay Dickey, he also lifted it easy. They all lifted it thumbless,
Okay,
which to me,
I was gonna ask if yeah if it was
which,
a thumbless thing with arm wrestling.
which to me I still can't do. I'm close, but I still can't do a thumbless inch lift. I need the thumb. But those guys, their wrists are so strong that
Yeah.
It was so I was impressed. I was impressed that day, just to see how many guys could actually lift it.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that and I don't know if that would be the only exception. It's hard to say like a blanket statement like that, but I feel like for arm wrestlers that are like really, I mean, really strong in the wrist, for thumbless lifts, that seems to be. I don't know of any other background where people come in and just do thumbless inch lifts other
Right,
than arm wrestling.
right.
That sport might exist or someone might do it, but I mean, we talk about like climbers and grip sport and how their fingers are conditioned and everything else, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee them an inch lift or
No,
a
no,
thumbless lift,
right.
especially. So I really only notice arm wrestlers having that level of like wrist strength
Yeah,
for like an inch dumbbell style lift.
yeah.
Was I guess you said you lifted the inch. Was that kind of being pretty tough back then, or maybe getting started? Was that a tougher lift? Now it's probably fairly easy for you. I mean, it obviously
No,
is.
I mean, by the time I got that, I think I had done so much Rolling Thunder training that I could
Okay.
hold it. I could hold it and lift it
Yeah.
15 or 20 seconds. Like right-handed was easy for me.
Okay.
So I've always had, because I do think the Rolling Thunder was something I lifted consistently on. So I think that I'm sure helped. And arm
Yeah.
wrestling is all about containment, right? So I got really strong in an open hand control. It's not squeezing, it's not pinching, it's just controlling this. And I think
Yeah.
that really goes well for a thick handled lift.
Yeah. And then you're organizing events. What's the first competition you come to in the US? Just curious if you can remember that.
Grip contests. So I'm pretty sure the first grip contest was in Minneapolis. I went to one of Adam Glass's grip decathlons. I think it was Grip Decathlon 4. So that was 10 events. That was awesome. 10 events, all last man standing. Um, that was a great time. So I flew out for that. I think it was a good turnout. We were, I don't know, I'm guessing like 12, 15 guys. And I knew from online, I knew who Adam Glass was. He's one of the first guys I sort of discovered,
Hmm.
his videos and his clips, and I knew he was a strong guy. Uh, but I was thrilled because I think I surprised him. Like I don't think he was expecting um any new people to show up. So I showed up and I beat him that day on the Rolling Thunder and the Axle. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah.
how did the other events go? Or do you remember any of the other events by chance?
I'm
I mean, you're talking about there's so many of them, but yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think I finished second. I'm pretty sure I finished second overall behind Adam. There
Hmm.
was Euro was one of them. There was a gripper event, but it was more reps. Like it was
Okay.
lower, easier gripper, but for reps. Um, there was a medley. There was like a rim lift, like it would be like 245 or 200 pound plates with a bar going through it and weight added. So, but it
Hmm.
was sort of a rim lift. There was um yeah, I can't
No,
remember. I'd have to look it
you're good.
up.
You don't have to name all of
Yeah.
them. I was just
Yeah.
curious as to like what events you guys
It,
were
it
kind
was
of
it was a it
going
was a
at.
really well
Yeah.
balanced event, and it had a lot of the classic sort of GSI type lifts. So
Yeah.
it wasn't sanctioned. So the weights you won't find the lifts in the
Hmm.
database because he didn't bother. He wanted it to go fast, so he didn't bother. He didn't have calibrated plates. He was just going by face value of the plates, and
Hmm.
it is what it is. But that's fine. It was so that was my first contest, and then my second one, what in the States was one of Jed's contests. I think it's called the Hold Fast Gauntlet. I think that's 2013, and that I believe that was Lucas Raymond's first tournament, first contest. So, and I think I won my weight class there and got second to Jed overall in that
Hmm.
one. Yeah.
And then I guess from the start of you hosting competitions to now you're competing and traveling a little bit more. Um, did you kind of know early on, similar to arm wrestling, where you're like, okay, this is my sport? Did you kind of almost have like I don't want to say like a do-over or a second chance because I mean it's a new thing, but did you have the kind of the same feeling towards grip when you started that you did arm wrestling where you're kind of like, okay, here's like this other door that's open and I'm gonna
Oh yeah,
pursue it the same
absolutely.
way?
Absolutely. Anything that you feel like that you're lucky enough to have a certain degree of success early on. And I really like the training. And for many years, I did both arm wrestling and grip. And I figured, it's gonna having a strong hand will always help in arm wrestling, right? And I really like the variety of the training in grip. I liked how there was different events. It wasn't always the same thing. Um, so yeah, and because it was so niche. I mean, arm wrestling was already sort of an underground sport. Grip is super underground, especially 15 years ago. Uh, so I just really enjoyed sort of trying to grow that community in Canada from nothing, and to travel and to meet other people who are into the same really niche sport that you are. I thought that was a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, no, I just always loved the events and the training, and yeah, it was definitely the same type of feeling. Like this is a sport for me.
Okay. And then with the time frame you're kind of naming, you're getting somewhat into, I'm going to bring up King Kong just because, I mean, that's something that is stuck. I mean, you have annual competitions that you're running. You're doing numerous events, arm wrestling and for grip. Um, but King Kong is probably like one of the most like universally known grip competitions. It really, I mean, it's the biggest multi-venue. It's been going, what, 10, 11 years now almost, or am I
This
off
is
on
going to be
that?
13. This is going to be 13
13.
this year.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So around that time, what was that like? I guess sort of, or how did that come about? You kind of
yeah. Sure.
creating the King Kong thing, or
Yes.
how did that become a
So
staple event?
so the first King Kong was 2013, and at that time, um, David Horn was running the strongest world's strongest hands, which was another multi-venue international contest. And I just thought that's such a cool concept. So it's not like I originated the multi-venue contest concept, but I thought, and then I first met Andrew Pankey at that Minnesota contest that Adam held in 2012. But then I bumped into him again at the NAGS North American Grip Sport Championships in Worcester, Ohio, in 2013 that Andrew Durniat held. And we were talking. He said, we talked about we both liked a lot of the different events in grip, and we thought maybe it would be fun to have like a multi-venue contest, but not to contest the most common list. So not necessarily have axle and euro and grippers, but some of the
Mhm.
more different or obscure lifts. So that's sort of how we sort of decided let's do this. Let's work together. Uh, and at that time, um, he was sort of more of a behind the scenes guy. And I said, I'll reach out and work, and try and promote the event and try to get people to be
Mhm.
involved. And then and he was more on, equipment and all that stuff. Um, and then yeah, it wasn't that hard. I reached out to a few different promoters. I don't remember how many promoters we had. Maybe we had about 10 promoters that first year, 70 something participants. And I think people liked the formula. It was the costs were pretty minimal, and it's always fun. You get to compete against people all over the world, right? And then um, I think what helped is that we kept doing it. I don't know why exactly the World of Hands, that strong World Strongest Hands stopped, but if you were able to do something consistently from year to year, and you're making an effort to do a good job and to keep promoting it, it'll just grow, right? So I
Mhm.
think we got in at a good time, and I think we've done a pretty good job sort of coordinating that. Um, so yeah, I'm super thrilled that the rate is growing. Last year I think we had 370 something. I think it
Yeah.
might be even bigger this year. But it's a contest that I know a lot of people look forward to, and I think that's really cool. And I like being involved in helping that grow and getting people around the world connected. I think it's a really cool thing.
And how was the name King Kong selected? Did somebody
I
specifically pick that, or how
No,
did that come
no,
about? Just curious.
that was me. I was looking through all the names. So
Mhm.
David Horn's World of Grip, his website is awesome because it has all of the history of anything grip related. And he had the history of all the different grip contests held. I don't know if he still keeps track of every grip contest, but it's a really detailed list. And I was looking at all the names 'cause I'm like, I want a good name, right? And I was looking through and then I'm like, King Kong. King Kong is a strong, big, strong gorilla it's recognized for strength, and I was looking into like the copyrights on
Yeah,
this thing,
right.
and apparently it's a very murky thing. Like there's the copyright to King Kong is really. It looked like it was I could use that term and not have any issues, and sure enough, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a great name for a contest, the King
No, it's
Kong, and
good. Yeah.
yeah,
And then
and
the
then
logo and everything is,
yeah, and then we ended up. I don't know who came up with the idea to call them the King Kong of grip, but I think that was a cool overall title as well. So and then when we came up with the name, I worked with a designer to come up with a logo, and then a few years after that, I decided I want to get that those an award that's really representative of the contest. So the
Mhm.
Gorilla Award was based on the logo clearly. So yeah, no, I think I really like the name of the event, and I like that it's growing, and I like that it's big. And every year, the level of competition will be high, and if
Oh
you
yeah.
somehow manage to place in the top three, top five, or even top 10 of your class, you're doing well because
Yeah.
the level is high.
No, it's been, I mean, since I've started doing these last few years, I mean, yeah, the turnouts are ridiculous. And I mean, everybody's, I mean, at some point you might have some new people at certain venues, but I'm saying like, yeah, towards that top end, I mean, you can almost go back to like 40 or 50 and see like pretty strong, like I mean, notable people way down the list. So to get
Yeah.
in the top 10 or five is like,
Even within the weight class, like is that's a huge
good.
accomplishment. Like it's yeah,
Yeah, no, it's almost, I don't say like a, not like a gamble, but it's always like a cool mystery waiting for the results because you don't really know how everybody did. And then when you start
right,
seeing, oh, there's so many classes, so many names and numbers. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I think it's real cool. Do you remember who won the first year you held it?
yeah, yeah. The Yuha Hardu. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but
Yeah,
um, is he? I think he's Swedish, right? I don't think he's Finn. I think he's a Swede,
I believe so.
but I'm not
But yeah.
100%. But he won the very first one, and at that time, he was one of the main, like he
Mhm.
was one of the top guys in group at that time. He retired a few years after that. He competed maybe till 2016 or so, and then he retired. But when he was active, he was right there. He was right at the top.
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of his videos, like doing plate pinching, or he'd have a lot of like chains hanging off a loading pin and lifting stuff. I don't know. I saw a lot of his training videos when I first got into the sport,
Right,
but then there it was all older footage, and
right,
yeah, I think maybe um might have backed off from competition health reasons or something, or maybe just kind of decided to stop competing. I don't know him personally or anything.
right.
But yeah, that's a name that if anybody goes back and checks into that, I mean, he was posting all kinds of crazy, I mean,
Yeah,
training lifts and a lot of cool footage there. And then I'm trying to think, has anybody else other than Tanner won it multiple times?
yeah. So
Matt,
before
okay,
Tanner won, Alexei Tukalov won it twice, two times in a row.
okay,
So Alexei, he's another. I mean, Alexei has been in the sport longer than I have, and he's always been
hmm
right at the very top of his class, and he's won the overall twice. Um, so yeah, so he and Tanner, I think, are the only multiple winners. I'm pretty sure.
yeah. And then I guess we'd have Sarah on the women's side.
Oh,
I
Sarah,
mean,
yeah. On the
I
women's
mean,
side,
yeah,
Sarah's won it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I know that like we're almost skimming by it. Like, okay, well, yeah, everybody should just know that. But yeah, I guess
No,
it's
no,
worth
she's very
noting.
impressive.
But uh, from that, like I said, I'm just going to kind of go in some just random questions, but kind of sticking to the grip theme. Um, we talked about some of the certain arm wrestlers that you had the privilege to kind of pull against or get a chance to feel. Um, now that you've competed in grip as long as you have, what I guess the best way to put it would almost be like who are some of and this could be opinion based or it's your opinion, but who are some of the best lifters you've competed against, or I guess some of your favorite people to compete against. You could kind of word it however you want, but who's somebody that maybe in the early days you'd get excited they were going to be there because you knew it was going to be close, or who kind of brought out the best in you, and that could be a 10 years ago or even as current as these last couple competitions. It could be anybody. So just anything, any names that come to mind.
Okay, so I would say overall, like the span of my whole career, I would say, although we're not always in the same contest or in the same class, me and Luke Raymond are very close. Like we each have our
Mhm.
different strengths or weaknesses. But in a contest, I think the two of us, he would be sort of my longest term rival at around my weight. I would say Luke
Mhm.
Raymond. So it's always a fun to compete with him. Um, Early on in my first few years, I was super impressed by Andrew Derniat, like because he was super strong at. I guess his pinch was the only thing that wasn't super incredible,
But it
but
was still good.
it was still good, right? And his grippers and thick bar are otherworldly, and he was just he can do some really incredible things. And for a guy who's not even that big, I mean, he was very, very impressive. And I know he was sort of the dominant guy right when I first got in, so he impressed me a lot. And now uh, Tanner, Tanner's just a phenom. So I mean, I'm more focusing on guys who are closer to my weight. Like I'm always going to be super impressed by the super strong
Mhm.
giants, of course. But I think those, yeah, I would say in terms of longest term rival was probably be Luke. Um, and then yeah, early days Andrew probably impressed me the most, and now Tanner. Tanner, I don't even feel like. Well, most people probably don't even feel that. Probably never gonna beat him. I think I had my best shot at beating him was the first time I competed against him at the first Arnold uh,
Okay. Yeah.
arm lifting, but I bombed out on Silver Bullet. But that was going to be the time that I was going to beat him when he was still 176
Newer.
pounds, or he was,
Okay.
he didn't have the back strength to have a good axle at that time. But he worked on all that. Now he's super strong at everything. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's always fun to try. And I think last summer at the North Americans, I think that was the first time that I beat Jed in an in-person contest. And I think it was the first time that Lucas beat Jed too. So that's a huge thing. I mean, Jed's always there, and he's always just a step ahead, right? Just so he's also a fun guy. And the great thing about Jed is he's so consistent in terms of he competes all the time. So he's a
Yeah.
good guy to chase, right? Because you know that he's active, and you know that. So anytime I can mix up with those guys, there's always some new people, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that I'm not, that I haven't mentioned that. But those are some of the guys that I'm thinking that off the top of my head.
Yeah. No, that's, I mean, that's kind of exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And then not talking about like individuals that you're going head to head with, right? I mean, you're competing against other people, but at the same time, you're competing against yourself.
Right.
When competing against yourself and trying to, set personal records or, competition records or whatever you're chasing, or just to win that competition. Um, do you have specific competition moments that maybe are slightly more memorable than others? Like, man, this competition that maybe you weren't anticipating winning and you, I don't say overperformed, but you kind of outdid yourself, or maybe there's, just some competition where you pulled a record, a lift, or it was close up until the last minute. Just like I said, just memorable moments for whatever reason they're memorable.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of, I mean, we talked about how many arm wrestling matches. I know there's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a ton of
but
grip ones too. It's hard to pick
the
a couple maybe, but
the 2022 Canadian Nationals were in Regina, Saskatchewan. It was the first time that the Nationals hadn't been held in 3 years because of COVID. It was the first year back. It was the first time that was out west. Um, and that was the first time that I competed, that I met Brad Provic and all those Western guys. So I was really looking forward to that contest. I'm like, listen, I've won every single Canadian Nationals. Now I'm going out west, and I know these big strong guys. So I was really excited about that contest. And there was me, there was Brad, there was James Jeffers, there was Tristan Hoth, there was
mhm.
Tom Bryson, there was, I think it was the first contest for um, what's his name?
Carter.
Carter Colo.
Mhm.
Uh, it was a super stacked contest, 5 events. And as the events were going, it was super close. Like after 3 events, or even after 4 events, it was down like fractions of a point separating the top few guys. And and it came down Little Bighorn at the end. And I think James Jeffers went from like fourth to first on that last event. Like that's so,
Mhm.
and I ended up when all was said and done, I took second. I won my weight class. I got second overall. Of course, I wanted to win overall, but you can't win
Yeah.
everything. But that was a really exciting contest, and I felt like I remember really looking forward to that contest, and I was very happy with my performance. Similar type of contest would be the one I organized last year, the North Americans. I really, really
Yeah.
looked forward to that contest. I really trained hard and I did very well. So that was another one that I was,
Yeah,
I got
because second overall, right?
second overall. So that was a nice surprise. Now I feel there's probably always some home field advantage to some degree, even though I try to make a balanced contest. Any contest that I do, probably there are a few events that were lined up better to my
Yeah.
strengths than others. But it was seven events over 2 days. You needed a stamina, you needed a lot, and I was doing all the loading and all the organizing. So
Eric,
I felt like,
I'm gonna defend you. Okay. You ready? I don't want anybody talking about a home field, home court advantage unless they were there moving 500 items out of your basement prior
yeah,
to the competition,
yeah.
right? It's not like you had some kind of like, I don't know, staff or like people. I mean, you probably had some help, but I mean,
I had a
how
lot
many
more help
medley
after the
items?
contest. I thing is, before the contest, I feel bad. Like I don't even like asking people to help before
Yeah.
because everyone wants to show up in shape, and I get it.
Yeah.
So I definitely enlist help afterwards. But on the setup I do it
Yeah.
mostly my own. I had a couple of people help me, but
But
mostly,
you have like a
yeah,
40 item medley, and
yeah.
I mean, you had
Oh yeah,
like, I mean,
it was
it
a lot
wasn't
of
light
weight.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
there's like inch dumbbells involved. You had
yeah,
like the scoop off a backhoe or something. I mean, like just I mean, big stuff in I think you're moving it upstairs as well, right? Or
right.
a big
Yeah, yeah,
portion
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm kind of joking saying I'm defending you on that one, but yeah, it's like there's also that kind of fatigue from trying to host and run everything, and then you've been doing all the setup ahead of time as well. Sometimes that can almost, I think, hurt people. If anybody's ever hosted or tried to do that while they've competed, you know,
yeah.
a lot of times it's, I don't know, sometimes maybe it keeps them distracted and it's a positive and it kind of brings out the best in them because they want to do good at their own competition. Other times I think
Right,
that it kind of bogs them down and they just
right,
don't perform and they're kind of like, man, I wasn't anticipating that to be as like mentally fatiguing as it was. So yeah, I don't think any of that stuff too, like with this is just my opinion on this, but like I mean, like the 3 inch, like Napalm Nightmare, like the pinch blocks. I mean, there's just certain lifts. Like I said, not to say that you're not good at them. You're good. You're good
right,
all around. But I don't think that it was necessarily anything was like catered to what you
right,
do or anything.
right,
I
right.
mean, yeah, it's and
The
in that field of people, you almost it doesn't matter if you cater it to yourself. Like people that are showing up are so good.
right.
There's no weakness. You have to pull very well at every event if you're going to be in it.
The the other contest that I would highlight, and this is probably the biggest highlight uh, from a competitive standpoint. It's the first time I went to Russia. So I went to St. Petersburg, Russia, in 2016 for the APL World Armlifting Championships. And what was cool about that is I was the only competitor from North America that year, and they rolled out the red carpet. They were so happy that I traveled all that way. Like
Yeah.
I was given VIP treatment the whole time, and it was they were really happy, and everyone was really nice, everyone was really, so I really really enjoyed that experience. And then I got a gold medal in the Rolling Thunder there. I got medals in a couple of other events. So that was really a highlight trip, and I'm happy to have gone because I don't think I'll be going back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, I know it wouldn't have been the same year. I know that this is me just kind of joking around a bit, but I know that Jason Denji went to Russia to compete before.
Right.
So what you're telling me with this is you have more medals from Russia than Jason does, because I don't think did Jason get any? Did Jason ever win anything over there?
I'm
I'm
not
more just
sure.
messing with him. I don't
Yeah.
think so. So I'm going to say that you have more medals than Jason. I just have to.
I went in 16 and 17, and I think he went in 19, I think. But
Okay, it
yeah.
sounds about right. But I think Mike even jokes with him about it because I think Mike like won something when he went, and I forget. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'll check in with Jason. He'll be like, I got like 5 medals, dummy. But I don't know. But yeah, I got to take a shot at him. just over the whole Russian medals thing, kind of a inside joke. But from that, yeah, like I'm talking about competition, people you've competed against. I mean, you've hosted so many competitions. I don't know. I mean, you're kind of naming some competitions that you hosted are also some of the most memorable. So, I was going to ask you, like, was there anything you hosted that you didn't compete in that had some cool moments in it, maybe? But a lot of them might
Yeah, I
overlap.
think the peak was probably last year's. I was so happy with how that North American Championship went. I felt
Mhm.
like it was, the perfect a number of people. I think I was able to run it according to schedule. Uh, I think there wasn't any controversy that I recall. So I think it was a really good coming together of many of the many. You never get everyone at these contests, but I thought it was a pretty good representation uh, on both Canada and US side. I thought it was really so that's probably my favorite contest that I've organized, aside from the multi-venue stuff. But for a single event contest, that's the one.
Okay.
A single venue
And,
contest.
and it's recent because I mean, you could probably name tons of competitions along the way, but it's cool that you've been in the sport as long as you have, and then you're still sort of, I guess, having like highlights, you know?
Yeah,
It,
well,
it,
it's
it,
coming with the growth
it's,
of the sport, right?
yeah.
The first 8 years of contests I held, most contests had 8 to 10 or 12 guys, but now or competitors. But now the contests are getting even the small contests have over 20 plus, and it's getting to it's a lot of fun, right? I mean, the contests are a bit longer, but it's a lot of fun to see all the people discovering the sport and enjoying it and having success. And the multi-venue thing is just taking off. Like I really think it's gonna continue to increase participation every year.
I'm going to move on from competition for just one second. Going into talking about having the inch dumbbell, right? And I know you lifting anvils and others. I mean, there's always like non-competition challenges, I guess, and that falls in the category kind of like feats of strength. Um, what are some of the things that, whether you kind of knocked them off as a side mission from regular competition, or was there any feat of strength that you sort of like? I know you lifted the inch early on, and it really wasn't, I guess, as much of a challenge for you as maybe other people at the time with your
Right.
experience training up to it. But are there any like big feats of strength that you've kind of been in pursuit of that took a while to get to, or that you're maybe still chasing? Anything in that, or,
Um,
or it could just be your favorite lifts that you've done outside of competition. Like, just what do you think
yeah,
are some of the cooler feats you've done?
yeah. I haven't done that many feats. I do have a number of anvils, and I did train those more for a period where I was able to get, I think 172 pound anvil by the horn with more than 40 pounds added to it. I was getting to the point where I
Yeah.
was getting pretty strong on some of the anvil lists, like doing some of the things that I think are just cool, like doing a double anvil lift with two anvils that weigh about 175 each. That's pretty cool,
Yeah.
I think. Or anvil inch combo. Those are some of the combos I've done. Um, blobs have always been a challenge for I haven't until recently never really spent too much time training them. Um, and the Fat Man, which I got from you, thank you very much. I still have yet to get to lock out a lift. I've lifted it maybe 12 inches, type
I was
thing.
gonna
And I'm
say, people listening in probably aren't even gonna believe that. They're gonna be like,
yeah,
"There's no way that this dude hasn't lifted the fat man."
yeah,
But yeah,
different
I don't
str-
know.
different strengths, different hand
Yeah.
dimensions. Everything's different, right? So for me, the inch is easy. And I know there's way more people, at least on the grip board. I remember the lists, seeing how many people lifted a blob. I assume it's a fat man, but it was
Well,
the list
some
was
of them are probably next gens, and they just say
yeah.
50-pound
Anyway, there
blob.
was a lot more
You know.
people who could lift a 50-pound blob than could lift the inch. And to me, that surprised me because I know way more people who from arm
Mhm.
wrestling world who can do the inch than can do the blob.
Yeah.
Uh, so I really feel I'm very, very close. Like I'm getting air almost every time. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of
I think it's one of those things that could happen any second. And honestly,
yeah.
like I don't know. I almost just wish I. Granted, there's distance, but it's like I almost just want to be there, like in person, and almost like just like chalk it and be like, here, okay, do this. I,
Yeah.
I I feel like I feel like if I was just there, I feel like you would have already lifted it. But I don't know. I mean, that's just some lifts you just don't have. You know what I mean? That day you're training, you break ground, you just don't have it. I've had some stuff
Yeah,
kind of similar to that where like it's there, but maybe it's kind of like dragging on a little longer than you thought.
right.
But
But the
yeah,
feat stuff, I don't know. I've just always been more motivated by the contest. Now, so maybe if there was a feats only contest, maybe that
yeah,
would get me more motivated to train the
okay,
feats.
yeah. Like kind of like
Uh,
Alex Gia hosted the Feet Meet
right,
Invitational. It was kind of
right.
based around feats. That's
So if
was
that
something.
became sort of the norm or a popular thing, I'd probably spend more time
Yeah.
training those individual lifts. Yeah.
Okay. So if I bounce back into competition a little bit, what are I guess I'll just ask you like what's your kind of like favorite format to compete in? You've competed in a lot of different, organizations, hosted, went to other people's competitions. What is sort of your favorite format, whether that's these certain lifts or order of lifts or anything that you just like format wise? Like when you look at a competition, what kind of, I guess, gets you excited to compete in general?
I like a lot of events, so it's not always possible. But like the grip decathlon that
Mhm.
Adam held. I think that's so cool. North Americans, there were 7 events over 2 days. I like the more events as long as they're varied and they're not all. And
Okay.
I as long as I feel the contest is balanced,
Yeah.
I like more events than fewer. I recognize logistically can be a challenge. So I like a lot of events, but if it could be, ideally minimum five. Um, I like last man standing. I like last man standing preset increments. I like that. I don't it To me, I'm much more motivated about doing well in the contest as opposed to records. The records I really don't it's not a main thing for me, or motivation for me. So I don't care that I can't attempt an exact weight to the exact fraction of a pound, I'm fine with jumping up 5 kilo at a time. The strongest guys will rise to the top. And you know what? Maybe, oh, had the increment been four kg instead of five, I would have got it. In the end, if there's a lot of events, it's going to balance out. The strongest people are going to win the contest. So
Mhm.
I like last man standing, preset increments, lots of events, and as long as it's well balanced. I don't something that's clearly just pinch or clearly focus on thick bar or grippers. If I feel the balance isn't good, I won't like it. And I do like the variety. I don't like the same things every contest. So I know some people prefer like powerlifting. It's the same 3 events and those are the events. I don't know. I just feel I would get bored. I like the variety of the training of the different things. So that's one of the things I like about our sport. In terms of scoring, especially if it's in person, I quite like reverse strongman. I think I'm in the minority on that. Um, I just feel it allows you to be strategic. Like if I've won an event or I've placed, I know I'm not going to beat Tanner on Rolling Thunder, but I can beat everyone else. I don't have to tire myself up. If I'm already got like a certain number of
Yeah.
points, I'll keep some in the tank for the next event. So I like the strategy that is offered by Reverse Strongman. So yeah,
And
those are
and for
sort of
that
mine.
you're yeah, and for that you're not so much you're not worried if that person outlifts you by 30 pounds in one event for
Yeah,
percentage. You're like, okay,
yeah,
you got an event win, but
yeah.
you could beat them by 2 pounds on the next one, and it's like,
Exactly.
you
So I
you're
like
good.
that aspect of the competition. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's and sometimes I think it depends on how it turns out. Like depending on the format. Sometimes we like it when it's like, oh well, I would have won if it was this. Hey, I like that
Yeah.
format. It's easy for people to kind of, I
Yeah.
guess, shift their opinion based on the outcome. But like if going into it, um, if somebody's really strong at an event and they know that they can really run the score up on something, I mean, then percentage makes it tough to kind of battle people like that.
Yeah.
So I guess there's pros and cons to both. But yeah, I was just kind of curious what you liked or kind of why. So that's a
Yeah.
good
And and
good
and
answer.
like many people, if the last event is a medley, I think that's really if it's a well balanced medley,
Mhm.
and like most people, I think those are a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And
we can't have you setting up a medley with like 15 rolling handles. It just wouldn't be
right,
fair.
exactly. As long as it's a
I'm just-
balanced
Be like, man, I think Eric's going to do pretty good in that medley. It's got 15 rolling handles. No, I'm joking. Uh, um, this I'm going to kind of take it back a little bit. Just because you've been in the sport a very long time. You've seen it, like I said, kind of, the pre-social media being a thing, and you've kind of seen it through a couple different waves. Um, and this is something that, as far as history or kind of capturing certain moments in the sport with the show, um, who are some of the people that kind of came before you that you think maybe you're kind of forgotten about or left out these days? They might not be actively competing anymore, but I mean, you mentioned Andrew Durney at earlier. Are there other
Oh,
names
for
like that
sure.
that were, I mean, household names that would still be very relevant should they, come back to competing right now? Maybe some newer people aren't aware of. So it's kind of just taking a trip down memory lane. We know who a lot of the big lifters are now from the rankings and everything else you keep. But is there anybody in the past that you think is like just as good or right there with all the best of the best, and maybe they don't sort of get credit, or you could give them a shout out? I know it's kind of a tough
Yeah, no,
question.
there's definitely a few. Andrew Derniat was definitely one of them. Just before, just before I came in, there was Chad Woodall, and I know he
Hmm.
was awesome, right? He was speaking to Jed. He's basically the top guy for a few years around. I think the sort of 2007, 8, 9, around those years, he was
Hmm.
really, really good, and I'm sure he'd be fine because he's not. I think he's a few years older than me, but I don't think he's much older than me. So him for sure. Another guy that I don't I wish he would have stuck to the sport a bit longer. But yeah, Cody Burns. Cody Burns sort of came in around 20, yeah, around 2012. Yeah, I think that was his first contest. And he competed for maybe 4 years or so. And one hand pinch, or really any pinch, I mean, he was
Yeah.
world class. At one point, he had the record on the Euro. He had the record on the Blockbuster pinch block. I mean, his
I was
pinch.
gonna say, I think he still has the Euro record right
Oh,
now.
does he? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's like,
so
I mean, don't ask me why. I mean, I'm
yeah.
kind of into some
Okay.
of the stats like you are. I mean, you're the one that's
Yeah.
doing data entry, but like I
Yeah.
look at them. I think Cody's two-hand Euro pinch, he might hold the one hand too. I don't want to take time to like look it up, but I
Yeah.
know for a fact, I think the two-hand Euro pinch is like 274. I think,
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's his. Now, one-hand pinch, I don't know. I want to say like 120 or 130 something maybe
Yeah.
is like the record, but
So
Cody might have that as well. He might have both.
he,
I
so
mean,
although
honestly,
his
yeah.
pinch was, I guess, his best event, he wasn't a slouch in anything. Like he was another well balanced. I'm really
Mhm.
impressed by these guys who seemingly have no weakness, or at least no glaring weakness. Everyone has a relative weakness, but
Mhm.
those guys, they were strong at everything.
Yeah,
Um,
I just double checked it for you. 131, Cody Burns, one hand Euro,
okay. Yeah.
131. And that was at King Kong, I believe. King Kong 15. Would that,
Yeah, and he's not a big guy. The guy, he was 200 pounds. Sometimes he was lighter than that.
yeah, that
So
was 93 class when he
yeah,
did that lift. So
so
just double checking it, but yeah.
those are at least a few names. I'm not as familiar. At least I mean I recognize the names, but those who competed before 2010 and stopped before 2010, I can't. Jed would be much better to comment on them.
Mhm.
But for the people that I've crossed paths with, those would be, I guess, the ones that come to mind out of people who are really, really good, who may not be as active anymore. But those guys definitely impressed me. And I'm sure if they were motivated to come back, they'd be right back in the mix very quickly.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if we can get. I have seen Chad Woodall posting a couple training videos. I mean, it'll kind of go in spurts sometimes where I'll see some stuff and then it'll kind of fade. But I mean, what I gather from that is like he's got to be still training. I mean, he's just training to
Right,
some degree. How
right.
specialized is it? I don't know, but like the guy's still doing strength training and he's still mixing in grips. I think at any point in time, if he wants to step
Yeah.
back in, it would be cool to see. So maybe some of us need to reach out and try to grab some of these people, just get them back in and just doing some stuff again.
And in terms of the giants, sort of like Rich Williams, he never did GSI, but he did some of those like the Mighty Mitts.
Yeah, a couple mighty. We won a couple mighty mitts, I
Yeah,
believe.
I mean that guy was he was super, super strong, But so it would have been fun to see some of those guys, him and Mike Burke, do a few
Oh
more
yeah,
grip contests because they
yeah.
were so strong at those events that you wonder exactly where were they on the scale of how would they compare to Carl and those guys. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be. Kind of speaking of that, I guess kind of going overseas a little bit, but the uh, the Swedish competition, Immortal Grip Wars.
Right.
I don't know if he's going to show up or not. I'm just bringing this up, but I saw Lane Snook is on the roster for that, so
Okay.
that would be kind of a more old school grip guy
I
that
just hope
is going
I
to
just hope that if he goes, that he doesn't just do the dumbbell lift, because he's done that in King Kong where
do
he
one of
just
them.
does the crusher and he doesn't want to do the rest. I mean, I know you're awesome at the crusher, but I'd like to see how you do overall, like in a
Yeah,
balance contest. So I just hope if he's going to make the trip that he does everything. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It'll be interesting, but that's kind of a name, I guess. If you're kind of digging in the vault of kind of these,
yeah,
really, I mean, strong people that did a lot of cool stuff. It's like it's interesting to see him. I mean, I don't know how old he would be now, but I mean, I mean, probably well older than you. I mean, he's probably closer to
yeah.
60, I would assume.
I'm pretty sure he's in his 50s, but I'm not sure.
50s, or
I
yeah,
don't
but
know.
so
Yeah,
probably getting closer to 60 or something, I would say. So yeah, it's good to see the people sticking around or maybe making a comeback. I don't know. If I see something like Lane on a roster,
right,
I'm like, well, maybe we can get Chad Woodall. Maybe we'll get
right,
Derniat back one. I don't know. It'd be cool to see just where they're at. I mean, or even if it took them a couple months to kind of train up and kind of get back in the swing of it. But some of them I think could probably just walk up with no training and still just be right there towards, the top end of some stuff. I would
right.
assume, I mean, you never know, but,
Yeah,
um, and, speaking of kind of competing and this other stuff, moving forward, what are some of the goals you have for yourself? Whether that's hosting, competing, is it just compete as often as you can, or when something intrigues you and obviously try to win it? But is there anything else, I guess, that you're kind of gunning for other than just, I mean, obviously like compete and win, but yeah, is there anything else that you kind of mapped out or on your bucket
yeah.
list, I guess?
I think I'm gonna. Uh, I think I'll just continue to host a few contests every year. I plan to keep King Kong going for a long time. The one contest that I most want to win is King Kong. I have won it once before, my weight class, obviously, but that's the contest more than any other that I want to another title. That's uh,
Mhm.
so that would be the one that is most. But anything, I like to compete in the biggest contests there are, um, at least in North America. So I plan to keep going to the Arnold's and the World Arm Lifting Contest and NAGs, and if there's any other interesting turnip contests, you know, I don't really see any my my training or my activity, whether it's hosting or competing. I think it's just going to be more of the same. But
Mhm.
I want to continue to be very active on both the fronts as a competitor and as a promoter. So I continue to enjoy it. I've been doing this 15 years now in grip, and I like it just as much as I ever have. So, and I'm still performing.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm still gaining in certain lifts, and I haven't really seen a decrease. So that's the beauty. One of the beauties of the sport. I think if you train consistently, you can go a long time, right? So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I mean, like just even like recently, I say recently, a couple months ago, but I'm about 2 months ago at the Arnold. But yeah, I mean, I know it's a weight class record, but you still, I think, was that a PR for you on Saxon in general? That 253 that you lifted?
I've
Because
done 250. I've done 253 before in a contest. I think I almost got the 257 or the 117.5. So
okay,
that was the closest I've been to 117.5. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, like you're saying, I mean, you're how old are you now? 47? Is that
40,
accurate?
48,
Oh,
48.
48. Okay, so
Yeah.
48, but you've been in the sport 15 years, and
Right.
I mean, you're still able to kind of maneuver through, whether it's 90, 93. I mean, if you ever wanted to go up to, I mean, like
Yep.
100 kg, 105, depending on what organization. So you have a lot of room that you're still able to kind of bounce around in different weight classes for challenges and do
Yep.
different things. And you're still pulling, like I kind of mentioned, right there with some, I mean, records and some best some of the best stuff that we've seen. So I think it's I don't know, yeah, just a testament to like your longevity in the sport and kind of how your training's paying off and you're, I don't know, planning on being around for a long time,
Right.
continuing to host and compete. And yeah, I mean, if you're still enjoying it too, it makes it a little easier to probably, I don't know, I think some people just kind of lose interest and they fall off, but to be doing it 15 years, I mean, it's kind of like Jed in a way, where Jed, I mean, has been doing it like 20 years
Yeah.
or a little bit over probably. And I mean, at least from my perspective, maybe being around for like 4 or 5 years, to see you guys, 15, 20 plus years, whatever, that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, in
Right.
anything, I mean, there's just a number of competitions and training and showing up, and it's not like you guys are just like middle of the pack. You're you're competing. I mean, and you're there to
Right.
win, and that's against whoever. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't need to say it. Everybody kind of already knows it if they follow the sport, I feel like. But yeah, just from me, I think it's super impressive that yeah, you've managed to stay at such a high level for so long, and I hope you continue to do as well as you are right now, or keep improving and doing stuff like that. So yeah, you're always somebody that I'm kind of pulling for in competitions. Unless we're going head to head, then I have to I want to beat you, but hasn't happened yet. But I just need to do I just need to sanction my own competition and just do like a blob ladder and no, I'm just messing around. Like cater all the events my way, but then
Yeah.
that'd be cheap anyway, right? I just got to get stronger at everything. But but yeah, man, that covers a lot. I mean, a pretty good portion of everything. Is there anything that you have regarding the sport, or I don't know, any random things for me, anything extra to kind of add in that maybe we looked over?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also really enjoy the behind the scenes stuff in this sport, right? So I enjoy um, I do most of the data entry for the GSI, and I enjoy that. I enjoy. I think that's a big selling point for our sport is people like to see how their lifts compare and how they keep track, how they track against other people around the world. So I do enjoy doing that. I do started doing the rankings a couple of years ago, North
Mhm.
American rankings. So I think that's also I think that's something I enjoy doing, and hopefully people see that as for what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a source of motivation and to recognize sort of the top guys, top competitors in our sport. So I hope that's motivates people more than it frustrates them. So, um, yeah, so those are some of the things I like to do in grip, and I plan to continue to be involved, behind the scenes doing that stuff. So, but if anyone has any questions about, the rankings or any of that, or really any questions about competing or hosting, do not hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions or help anyone out.
Okay, Eric, is that like final thing? No other questions, nothing else? You feel pretty good with everything we covered?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, no, no, I'm not
Yeah,
trying to like put you on the spot, but
yeah.
yeah, I just didn't want to be like, boom, and hang up on you, and you're like, oh, wait, we could have talked about that. But so yeah, no, I mean that, like I
Well,
said,
maybe I'll just mention the other thing that I do a lot of is I've always been um, interested in the history of the sports in which I do.
Mhm.
Um, for grip, I think David Horn has done such a great job with his site documenting the history of the sport. And in arm wrestling, I'd done the same. I always thought it was interesting that I'd heard about all these people who had won all these titles, but online there was nothing,
Mhm.
virtually nothing from before the year 2000. So I would hear people won 26 world titles and I couldn't find the evidence and I was just very curious.
Yeah.
So I decided to look into this and that actually became sort of a lifelong passion. So the past 15 years, I've been having fun in my spare time researching and writing about the history of arm wrestling, organized arm wrestling. And I have a website devoted to that topic called the armwrestlingarchives.com. Um, and that's if you have any interest in the history of arm wrestling or to see who's won what, I have results from almost all the major events um, ever, all the big ones at least. So if you have any interest in that, by all means, I encourage you to check out that website. Yeah, I would say that's another thing that I've really been passionate about over the past 15 years.
Well, I think it's cool that you had that in there because I mean, a lot of people know that you do a lot of data entry for Grip Sport International, for the database and everything. I mean, and even like Armlifting USA, I mean, you were helping them with the Arnold too. I mean, in some capacity, I'm just saying you've been, aside from hosting your own competitions and competing yourself, you've also helped, I mean, a lot of other people in the sport. I mean,
Right.
but whether it's behind the scenes or out there in public, I mean, they're seeing you do it, but yeah, I don't think that goes unnoticed. I mean, I notice it. I think a lot of other people do, but yeah, it to me it almost kind of sets. I don't want to try to hype you up too much, but it almost it almost sets like a standard where, like in the sport, it's almost like that's kind of in my mind sort of you're sort of like kind of like the model competitor, and that's just my opinion. But like somebody that I mean, you don't get caught up in too many politics. You're competing on all formats, so there's no excuses. If somebody beats you, congratulations. There's respect. If you beat them, you win with class. If you're winning or losing, you're running a scores table. You're loading plays. You're doing something. You're entering the data for everybody after. I'm just saying
Right.
like there's a lot of involvement that goes just beyond being like, oh, he's a strong lifter or what, you know what I mean? So I
Right.
just hope that everybody understands that or understands everything that goes into it beyond just lifting the weights or even just, oh, well, I'm a host because I say like, no, you're really involved in the sport, and I think it sets a good example for people looking to grow their regions or their areas because you mentioned you go from maybe 8 people showing up to something, or maybe it was even smaller at the beginning, and then look
Right.
what you've sort of turned it into, whether it be a decade or a little bit more. I mean, I mean, you're getting, I don't know, 20, 30 people for some competitions, but I don't know how big some of the training sessions you guys do are, but it's just started as basically something that nobody really knew about. And then
Right.
you took it upon yourself to basically like put all this stuff on the map and legitimize it. So, um, there's a lot of people that I think, are aware of that, but there might be some that aren't aware. So I'm just kind of giving, I don't know, publicly stating it and giving some credit.
Yeah, well, I want to highlight some of in grip at least some of the people that I've used as role models. Like,
Okay, yeah, no, that's a great one.
I mean, just for many of these same things, like David Horn in the UK and Jed Johnson. I mean, they've always been active, trying to hosting contests, organizing things. It's a lot of work, and so those are some of the guys that I definitely look up to that I've tried to model what I do. So yeah, I would say encourage anyone who likes to compete, whether it's arm wrestling or grip or any sport. I would say encourage people support the events that you want to see more of. You know, if you like what someone is doing and you like, then show up and compete. You know,
Mhm.
because if you like something but you're not showing up and competing, it might not always be there. Um, so I would say that's important to do. If you like a promoter and you like the effort they're doing and you like how they're running things, let them know by showing up and participating, and then that's will increase the chances of them doing it again. So I think it's very
Mhm.
important uh, to support the contests or the events that you want to see more of. If you like money and you want and somebody's offering money at a contest, support that contest. If you like
Mhm.
awards and you like the awards they're doing, support the contest. If you really like the set of events that they're hosting and you think this is a really well designed contest, try and show up to that contest. And I know grip is small. There aren't a million contests,
Mhm.
and you might not have a contest within driving distance, so it's not always possible. Or the other thing I would say is, if it doesn't exist near you, start it. You know,
Mhm.
I'm one example. There's a lot of people who've done the same thing. You have grown the community in where you've lived. You've hosted contests. So, uh, and this show is another great example. There was no grip
Mhm.
show. Now there's a grip show. It's a great show and it's promoting the sport.
Yeah.
So it's if you feel like something is missing, take it upon yourself and see what you can do, because altogether it's all helping and the sport is growing. So thank
Yeah,
you
no,
for
I,
the
I
great show.
agree. I can't
Yeah,
put it any better than that. So yeah,
yeah,
I'll leave that there.
yeah.
Because I can't add nothing to that. So, um, the last thing I'm gonna hit you with, we'll put you on the spot a little bit because you're not competing. It's the U.S. Nationals. but you are very aware of the lifters, I think for the most part, and with all the data entry, competing against a lot of these people. Um, do you have any predictions, or would you be willing to give us any predictions for the U.S. Nationals
Can
as
you
just
can
like
you
an
gi-
analyst?
can you give me another rundown of what the events are?
Silver Bullet, 2-inch Saxon, 2-inch Country Crush, and Little Bighorn. And I don't know if you need me to start naming off people that are going to be there, but
Okay, well, there's you, there's Jalen, there's Jason, there's I'm assuming Jed and Luke,
Jed, Luke, I believe Devin Lee Brown.
Devin Lee, yeah,
Um, and like I said, with that, I start thinking about like Little Bighorn and obviously
yeah.
the thick bar lift, Country Crush for Devin Lee. I mean, not to say that I don't know what the grippers will be. Yeah, I'm just saying, but it's an interesting lineup
Is
with
this
some people. But
percentage based or is this reverse strongman?
I believe it's, I should know, but off the top of my head right now, I'd have to go back in and probably check one of the conversations or check the notes. Yeah, I think it'll be percentage based, but I don't even know if I could find it right now. But
Okay,
yeah,
no worries.
I,
This is a
I guess
very, very tight contest. Um, if I had to predict first overall, I would go with Jason. I would go with
okay.
Jason.
So you
It,
think that belt's going to get unified? He's taking that belt from Napalm.
I think that's set of events. Okay, so there's only four events. There's no medley. There's no. It's
Just those four.
silver bullet, two inch Saxon,
2-inch Country
inch crunch
Crush,
crush, and little
and then
bighorn.
yeah, with the lockout lift being Saxon, and then Little
Yeah,
Bighorn and Country Crush to 6-inch pull height. Yeah,
Jason's gonna be tough to beat if he's in shape. If he's in shape,
yeah.
I know he's not the best in the little bighorn probably of the bunch. But him, I mean, I'm guessing him, Jason, Jalen, and Jed for the silver bullet. I'm guessing
Hmm.
for the Saxon. I know 2 inch is not Jalen's specialty. I know he prefers the thick, uh, um, but I know Jason's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean Jason's pulled like
310
upwards
or
of,
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
like he's up there.
and I know Luke is better at I think he's particularly good at the napalms. Now I don't know how much he's on an actual Saxon bar, but I'm sure
That'd be a little bit of a
he's
question mark. I'm not
yeah,
sure, but I mean
yeah,
his pinch is
yeah.
ridiculous. But
Country Crush, yes, Devin Lee is super strong, but I think Jason's going to be just as strong. And in the Little Bighorn, it's going to be Luke and Devin Lee, I guess. Is Tim Butler going?
Tim mentioned to me that he might go, but I think he's still dealing with some injuries. So if he
Okay,
goes, I think it's more of a hangout type
right.
deal, not
Yeah,
not a serious a competition. Just because certain events I think are still maybe there's some hand injuries or some other injuries that he's got going on. I didn't like ask him too much about it,
right.
um, but yeah, he said he might try to make the trip. But
Anyway,
yeah,
if you're asking me though for the overall, my
yeah,
pick is Jason.
okay.
Yeah,
So I just curious because like I said, I mean,
yeah,
as much of competitor as you are, when you're kind of sitting out, you're always able to
yeah.
analyze and kind of break things down. So like I said, I'm throwing you on the spot a little bit with that
It's
coming up here in a couple
it's
weeks, but
definitely an exciting contest. I mean, that assortment of competitors is,
yeah, I think
I'm by no means confident in like super confident in my prediction. It could go a lot of different ways,
yeah,
but
I
that's going to be an
think
exciting contest.
there's like other. I'm just thinking of some other signups. I believe Sarah's going to be there. I know. Well, Sarah Chapelo, Sarah Saffel. I believe Melissa Dingy is going to be lifting. I don't know if we have any other on the women's side yet. There's still a few weeks to sign up and do stuff, but yeah. And then for the men's, I think another. I think Derek Hudson's coming too,
Okay.
which kind of adds another.
Yeah.
He did really well at the Arnold. I mean, in certain events. I mean, yeah, I don't know that might shake some scoring up as well. But uh, but yeah, I don't know. We're just trying to get as many people as we can to kind of hold the best competition we can. But yeah, I was just wondering what your thoughts were as a spectator almost when you get to sit out.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
I'm excited. That's coming 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
31st. So yep, getting ready.
yeah.
But yeah, other than just messing around and kind of getting your opinion on nationals, man, I don't think I have anything else. And like I said, I don't want to hold you up too much longer. I think that's a pretty good scope of everything from kind of intro, what you've done in the past, what you're doing now, what you plan to do in the future. Kind of covers everything. And if we have to dive in on anything else, we can always do another show or
You're right, right,
bring you back in for something else. Like I
right,
said, you've kind of been my main go-to for recaps, and I thank you for that. But that's just because you have such a good knowledge of the sport because you're tuned into multiple organizations, everybody's kind of statistics, and just knowing everything, and you just traveling and putting the time in. You've met a lot of these people face to face, even though
right.
you're in Canada somewhere. You're real accessible to everybody in person as well because you travel, you put the time in. So yeah, I think that might be the about the last thing. Other than like I said, I mean, I thank you for supporting the show too. I mean, aside from doing your own interview, when I first was even like on the fence, kind of questioning doing the show, you being who you were, a veteran of the sport that so many people look up to, when you were kind of like, man, I think there's a space for this. I think this could actually work, or I think it's a good idea. You just saying that kind of I guess sort of nudged me and kind of boosted me to like, okay, maybe I will do it. Because for a while I was like, I don't know if I'm even gonna try.
Right.
But no, but yeah, I mean, having a veteran lifter like yourself kind of sign off on it and say, man, yeah, I think that'd be good, and let me know if I can help. That meant a lot to me doing something like this as well. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah,
I gotta at least
you're
thank you,
welcome.
but yeah, Eric, hey, we'll see how that US Nationals turns out. We'll see if you were right. Um, I don't know. I might beat Jason on Country Crush. I think that's what I'm going for. I'm partially joking. I don't think I can hang with him quite on that, but yeah, I'm gonna try to push Jason as much as I can. Even though I know he thinks he's way out of my league, I'm gonna try to upset him. I'm gonna try to beat him on something, just so I can say I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of that, I'll quit joking and messing around. But yeah, probably see you on a future show. And yeah, if you have anything else to finish with, just go ahead. I'll give you a last
I'm
word,
good.
whatever.
I'm good. Thanks for
Okay.
inviting me for the show.